when we finally fired up our Type R motor, it smoked us out of the garage. So what are you going to do when your motor smokes? Well, you do what any Honda guy would do. You find your pile of motors and you look for another engine. We're going to put a K24 A2 into our 8th gen, and I'm going to show you how. Welcome to the VTEC Academy. You're about to get schooled. Some of you may be wondering why we're going to all this trouble to change the oil pumps. When we change oil pans, which has a rear mount on it, it's a taller or deeper oil pan, so we need a deeper pickup. So that's why I have Scott doing double duty here right now, getting these two motors changed over. So if you compare these, this is an RSX Type S pump, and this is the Civic SI. Actually, this is the Type R pump from 06 to 11, which uses that deeper oil pan. It's pretty obvious. You can see there's about, I don't know, maybe 10 millimeters difference between these two pickup points, and that's because of the deeper pan. Now, you don't actually have to go out and purchase one of these Type R oil pumps. You could modify the 06 Civic pump. Let me show you real quickly. Right over here, we have an 06 Civic pump. You can see how it's got the taller pickup, and this is actually one out of a CRV. Kind of rusty because I just leave it out there in the weather, and it rains occasionally here. Anyway, basically the big difference between the two is on the underside here. Can you see these cutouts right here? These cutouts are actually for the counterbalances on the crankshaft so that they can clear when the engine is spinning around. So if you want to use this particular oil pump, the one from your 06 Civic motor, you need to do this. You need to go in there and you need to machine out windows for clearance so that your crankshaft counterbalances won't impact the case. So see right here, I've already modified this particular one. This is from a project we had, gosh, way back in 2005 when we actually modified the very first 2006 Civic to have a K24 in it. Anyway, not particularly hard to do. Helps if you have a mill. You can make nice rounded corners, but realistically you could just cut it with a die grinder, it'd be fine. Anyway, that's why Scott's been working hard to do this. We need to get the right oil pump on. Interesting fact, if you look at the blocks here, this is the K24 block. It's the same as the Accord block and the TSX block, not the same as the CRV block. It's got this reinforcement on the crankshaft. When the 06 Civic came out, they also had that same reinforcement in the block. So the pump actually has cutaway on the underside. Sorry. This one we had to cut because this is the one we had on our K24 engine that we modified back, oh gosh, I don't know, probably in about 2004. We actually modified it by machining out this clearance area so that it would clear this area of the block. But we don't have to do that on our Type R one. One other thing we have to do, and this one's already been done because a long time ago we modified it. There's actually an oil port right here. This oil port feeds oil right here into the bearings that are in the countershaft balancer. So that needs to be plugged up. If you don't plug it up, you're going to have really low oil pressure in the top end of your engine. Oil just pour out of that. We found an Allen bolt with the right size threads and just basically screwed it in there to block everything off.
There's actually a couple other things that are different with this. If you're doing the K24 and using your Type R oil pump, these two fixed guides are different, you can see. And actually, if you line those holes up, yeah, it slightly puts it in a different spot. So we have to change that out, and just because we've been told that this tensioner is different. I checked them and they look identical, but there's 2 different part numbers on there. So to be safe, I'm going to change it and use the chain and everything just in case, so we don't have a problem.
Again, that needs to be changed if you're switching over to the Type R oil pump. All right, my job is done.
Now it's time to put it together.
Your job is not done.
No.
So we took old Smokey out and decided to go opt for K24 too, because, you know, K24.
Yeah.
But we had to make some modifications in order to get it working so we could put it in the car. The big thing was the rear mount for this particular swap is on the oil pan. The oil pan is a little deeper. So what else did we have to change in order to make it work?
In order to do that, we had to change the oil pump, the timing tensioner for that, the guide, and the chain.
Oh, wow.
You could probably get away without changing that, but you're going to starve for oil because the sump is deeper. So,
yeah, it's like this much difference between the two.
Yeah, so you're going to want to
to
change that oil pump.
Yeah.
Obviously. And so that's what it takes, and you got to pull the timing cover to get to those screws in order to get that out.
So the window tray is changed different. It was kind of confusing on this particular engine because we'd already switched to a Type S oil pump, and it had almost all those parts. So basically,
it was plug and play.
It was plug and play.
And I just replaced everything just to be safe in case there was a difference between
the
these
Type
parts.
R and the Type S. Yeah, understandable. So speaking of plug and play, we also had to make sure that the if you're doing this from a K24, you need to make sure you plug the hole that feeds the oil to the bearings on the countershaft shafts, counterbalance shafts. There we go.
It's simply to oil. It's simply to oil the oil pump.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So so all that's done. We made a few other changes too. It looks like you changed the intake manifold.
We changed the manifold from that TSX style.
Right.
Well, what else did we actually change?
Oh, we put the idler pulley on it instead of the power steering pump.
Yeah, because our power steering, we don't have a hose right now, and we didn't want to shoot oil all over the place, so you can manhandle it.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is we changed to the smaller Type R pulley so that we could
so our belt would work.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, this engine is wrapped up. It's ready to be, you know, clutch bolted on and bolted to the transmission, harness on, and back in the car. So I think we'll do that next. But something interesting about old Smokey here, when Scott had it apart, I had assumed that because of the dyno testing with some really aggressive cams that they had actually damaged the valve guides. But when you pull the oil pan off, this is what you found. These are the oil squirters. So the oil squirters were beat to heck.
I don't know
and
how.
Knocked off. Not sure how that happened.
They mount upside down in there, but
yeah. Well, they mount like this in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens is they squirt oil on the bottom side of the piston to help cool the piston. But since these were broken off, I'm pretty certain it was squirting oil straight at the cylinder wall. And it probably was getting by the rings, and that was causing our smoke. So what we're going to do is replace the 2 broken ones with 2 not so broken ones and see if it solves our smoking issue. Wouldn't it be nice if all smoking issues could be solved that easily?
Yeah.
So we're gonna give that a shot and you know, put this motor in a different car and fire it up and see how it goes.
And
not sure which car.
You've seen us change the head in the car before, so
yeah, that's not gonna be
we
terribly
can do that.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's a little bit of good news here about this whole debacle. The other good news is Now you know that if you have an R18 powered 06 to 11 Civic or a Civic SI from the same generation, you can actually put a K24 in there, and this is what you need to go through in order to do that. So I guess we're ready to take it off and bolt it into the transmission and get it in the engine.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what we're going to do with it next week. So stay tuned for that video. Thank you very much for joining us for another episode of VTEC Academy, and please think about liking and subscribing, and don't forget to hit that bell in order to get notifications when the next video is out. If you are interested in some of the other stuff, other projects we have going on, we've got a B16 going into a 8891 Civic. We've got a K20 going into 84 or 86.7 Civic SI. That will be coming out pretty soon.